F-Zero, a game that defined what was possible on the Super NES, but also gave way to a series of blindingly fast futuristic racers. Hello and welcome to Tanner's Game Museum. Today we'll be looking back on the F-Zero series. In 1990, video game fans got their first taste of Mode 7, a scaling method on the SNES that gave games a semi-three-dimensional look. This was huge for the time, and since the technology seemed so futuristic, it was fitting that a futuristic racing game would be the first to utilize it. With its cyberpunk-esque setting and incredibly fast gameplay, F-Zero stunned Nintendo fans that were looking into what the brand new console had to offer. Players could choose to race against computer-controlled opponents in a Grand Prix mode, or race against the clock in time trials. F-Zero even had a story, even if it wasn't emphasized much in the game itself. There were 4 racers that the player could choose from, each with their own background and unique racing machine. But a notable missing feature was multiplayer. F-Zero being a single-player only game didn't bother too many people, considering how amazing the technology behind the game was. But as time went on, both fans and Nintendo took note of the lack of a solid multiplayer racer utilizing the Mode 7 technology, which eventually led to the development of the first title in the Mario Kart series, Super Mario Kart. But that's a topic for another video. Soon enough, the Super Nintendo's time in the spotlight had ended, and the 3D technology had advanced to the point of most games consisting entirely of textured polygons. This was a far cry from the Mode 7 technology that was so impressive when the SNES first appeared on the market. Although F-Zero had something of a follow-up release with the Satellaview in Japan, elsewhere the F-Zero series had not been seen since the release of the first game. But with 1998 came the release of a true sequel, F-Zero X on the Nintendo 64. This game was F-Zero with every single aspect turned up to the max. You still had your traditional Grand Prix and time trials mode, but it also included a variety of different modes and play options, including, yes, multiplayer, with up to 4 players. This game was even faster than its predecessor, with racing machines that reach incredible speeds. To truly experience how fast this game feels, you have to play it firsthand. This sense of speed was contributed to, without a doubt, by its 60 frames per second gameplay. That's right, 60 frames per second, on the Nintendo 64. This didn't come without a cost, however, as graphical and audio fidelity took a huge hit. But F-Zero X isn't a game about graphics. It's about racing 29 others in a futuristic death race at top speeds on absolutely insane race courses. It consists of all the twists, turns, loops, jumps, and corkscrews you could ever need. F-Zero X was one of the most intense racers to ever hit the market up to that point, and fans could not wait to see what was next for the series. Fans wouldn't have to wait too long, as F-Zero Maximum Velocity was released for the Game Boy Advance just a few years later in 2001. Overall, Maximum Velocity was very similar to F-Zero on the SNES, with this title featuring a similar technique to Mode 7 for creating pseudo-3D environments. While this game wasn't as groundbreaking as the first, it was definitely a solid entry in the series and brought back the slightly slower gameplay of the first title. It also featured multiplayer with the link cable, which unfortunately I can't capture footage of. Maximum Velocity was a great handheld racer and showed off the power of the Game Boy Advance, just as F-Zero showed off the power of the Super NES. In 2003, the next entry in the F-Zero franchise, F-Zero GX for the GameCube, was released. At the same time, a somewhat different arcade version of the game, created with the involvement of Nintendo, Sega, and Namco, would be released as F-Zero AX. Ultimately, the gameplay in GX was very similar to F-Zero X, continuing the tradition of frantic, high-speed racing in futuristic environments against a large group of racers. Additionally, a story mode was added, putting you in the shoes of series protagonist Captain Falcon as he completes various missions that are very, very difficult. This game, like X, runs at a solid 60 frames per second, with very impressive graphics and sound. Although this game, like its predecessors, is remembered for being very difficult, it's also remembered for its polished, top-notch gameplay. F-Zero GP Legend and F-Zero Climax, released in 2003 and 2004 respectively, in Japan for the Game Boy Advance, were the next titles in the F-Zero series. GP Legend was released in 2004 in the rest of the world, while Climax was released in Japan only. Both of these games consisted mostly of gameplay that was very similar to Maximum Velocity. I don't have a whole lot to say about these games, since they stuck with the same formula that the previous GBA title did. They did change quite a bit graphically, however, making them some of the most graphically impressive Game Boy Advance games out there. It's a shame that Climax wasn't released elsewhere, since it seems like a great entry in the franchise. As of this recording, Climax was the last new release in the F-Zero series. Sure, Captain Falcon and F-Zero inspired stages have been featured in the Super Smash Bros. Series, and an F-Zero inspired minigame was included in the Wii U launch title Nintendo Land, but a true F-Zero title hasn't been seen since the release of Climax. But when this video is posted, E3 2018 will be just kicking off, and who knows, maybe we'll be revisiting the futuristic skylines and twisting race courses of Mute City sooner than we think. So to sum things up, go play an F-Zero game if you haven't in a while or haven't at all. It's a fantastic series and it's a ton of fun on your own or with friends. And of course, thank you for watching. I love making these videos and your support really helps me out. See you around.